My name is Alyssa Chambers. This is astrology and makeup. I'm gonna do my makeup and I'm gonna talk to you about Taurus in the first house. Specifically, Taurus in the first house, any placements. So if you have a Taurus sun and you have stumbled upon this video, I want you to take a minute and look at the rest of your chart. Never heard of a chart? I'm gonna list my playlist of how to look up your chart and how to learn about your chart, and then you could possibly come back to this. So this is specifically just Taurus in the first house. So Aries represents the first house and Taurus is typically pretty chill. So it's really funny when you combine the two together by putting it into your first house, because Taurus starts to behave very differently because Taurus is an earth sign. They're not typically a sign that gets like riled up too much. Depends on their placements, of course, because they are near Aries, so they could have other Aries placements, but they are a sign that's pretty relatively calm and keeping it together. So for them to get mad usually takes a lot, and it being in the first house is really going to shift that, which is kind of funny. If you have a sun or rising sign in Taurus in your first house, then you probably act super chill for the most part, but it is amplified because your first house is how people see you, and your sun is how you think people see you, and your rising is how people actually really see you. So they're going to think you're a Taurus that's got like a little bit more edge to them, if you will. So if you have Taurus moon in your first house, that's going to be that you actually are a little bit more edgy. You're going to be, it's going to take all the chill parts and make them a little bit not so chill, and then it's going to take all of the main things that you do and boost them up a little bit extra. For example, I think Taurus are very bougie. They are a sign, it's really cool how they learn to be frugal, but they also can be really bougie, and they learn really well what they can spend money on, and they like to spoil people a little bit. So it being in their first house, instead of them just being regular bougie, like Taurus is buying 25 blankets, instead it's going to turn it into that they show that they're bougie more. So they are going to be a little bit more dramatic with their flair than usual, than a typical Taurus moon, which I feel like a Taurus moon already does that, but in the first house it'll be like, hey, have you guys seen this ridiculously bougie thing that I bought? Here it is. And your moon is how you really truly are on the inside, so you're gonna enjoy a little bit more of the spotlight than usual. You might be a little bit more vindictive than usual. I feel like Taurus, this is no way meant to be offensive, but I feel like Taurus can be very vindictive, and this amplifies that. Taurus Mercury, you are going to speak down to people whether you meant to or not. Taurus are just, they're very smart, and they definitely think that they know best, and they speak to people on a very like calm level. They don't really get usually very fired up. They can keep their cool better than most signs, and with the first house being in charge, not so much. So you're now taking a sign, Taurus Mercury, that doesn't have much to say unless they're probably like really mad or something really influences them, and now you're basically adding fire to it. So of course you're going to get more easily fired up, and you're going to, I guess you could say, lose control a little bit more often. If you have a Taurus Venus in the first house, Taurus is ruled by Venus, or Venus is ruled by Taurus. I'm saying it wrong, but they go together. They're like two peas in a pod. Then you add the first house in. Again, the first house is going to have this effect on pretty much everything. Earth signs being the only ones who can kind of get away with it, but it's going to amplify that. So a Taurus Venus in the first house is going to be super lovey-dovey. They're going to be really sensual. They're going to love food, and they're going to hopefully cook for you. They are going to want to like feed you, take care of you, that kind of thing. Taurus Venus is going to love luxury. They're probably going to have 150 blankets, and they're going to be a little bit more flaunty than a regular Taurus would be. Taurus Mars in the first house normally wouldn't want to fight about things unless they're feeling very strongly about it. But when you add in that spiciness, that fire of the first house, it turns it into somebody who is going to stand up for themselves a little bit more, which is really nice. I think Taurus deserve that sometimes, to be able to stand up for themselves. It's honestly sometimes frustrating to watch. They're going to be super loyal. Mars, Taurus in the first house. They're going to be bougie a little bit. They're going to be a little bit flaunty. Anything that they would have said or done as any of the other signs is going to be turned into Mars being like they're actually doing it and following through with it for the most part. More so because they have fire. If they have this placement, which I'm going to talk about, in another house, it's going to stop them from doing. If they have this placement in another house, it's going to stop them from doing what they really want to do in some cases, because the fire is what makes them actually do it. It's the spark. It's the push, if you will. Taurus Mars in the first house should be pretty reliable of a person. Somebody that you can definitely rely on and know that they have your back, very loyal. They might be a little bit more hostile or quick to jump on something that's going to help them out in the long run. Maybe a little bit take advantage of things, like free things or opportunities more than usual. Probably also going to have a problem with taking things personally. They can't help it. It's just how they are. And they're going to be more likely to get upset about things and take them personally because they see it as a reflection on themselves. For Taurus Jupiter in the first house, they're gonna have kind of a rough time. I kind of feel bad for people who have this placement because they're gonna want to be structured, but they're going to have a hard time being structured. Jupiter is a sign that takes a longer time to go around the sun, so it's going to end up being pretty much a whole practically generation of this, so that's rough. But if they do have it in the first house is where it really changes it, because the first house doesn't really have very much structure. It's kind of like the crazy point. So if you have it in your first house, I'm sorry. Jupiter in your first house is going to lack structure and really need structure more than anything. So if you have this placement, I recommend that you take a lot of notes and you work really hard at that, because it's going to be a really, really hard thing for you to do, because you're trying to learn from a structured placement in an unstructured house, is the best way I can explain it. Saturn is the same way as Jupiter. So Saturn in the first house is typically very unstructured, and then Jupiter definitely needs structure to learn, and it being in Taurus is going to give it the structure, hopefully, that it needs in Saturn to be able to function in a good way, because Saturn is stability. So it's like a contradiction. It's stable and unstable at the same time in that specific placement. Taurus in the first house in Uranus or however you want to say it is pretty cool, because you have the structure, you have that you want to do things, you have that you're probably going to figure it out more than anything, and then you have a fire sign house that's going to push you into doing it. So that's really, really cool. When you have a fixed sign and a cardinal sign got your back. So what makes you unique in that placement, and what makes you rebel or want to do better or anything in general like that, is the fact that you're going to be amazing at whatever you do. You're going to do a great job. You're going to be very strong and work very hard, because that's just who you are as a person. It's a really, really nice placement to have if you utilize it correctly. Next we have Taurus in Neptune in your first house. Neptune is like dreams, stuff like that. So things outside your body, kind of. So in this case, their dream is probably going to be that they want to work hard and achieve great things. They probably want to be like millionaires, and they'll probably do it. Finally, you have Taurus Pluto in the first house. So Pluto is how you transition and what you're going to do in this life. So it's very similar to Neptune, but the problem is that if it's not your dream, then it's going against what you want, which is kind of rough if you think about it. I don't think that the possibility of you having a Neptune and Pluto is very possible in the first house in Taurus. So it might not be your dream to do well or to be this way, but it's going to happen, kind of thing. Pluto is kind of more of like fate. It's more of your boss than any of the other signs, because if you're aware of the other signs, like how you speak and things like that, you can make changes and effort to not be that way. But if it's your Pluto, that's just how it is, baby. That's just how it is. So yeah, these are all the Taurus placements in your first house. I'm going to go through every single house, and you can compare and contrast how it changes the placements. So if you're not sure what time you were born, but you have a relative good idea, you could watch these and learn how to read your chart and see where you could be wrong and change things and tweak things until you get the houses correct. Thank you for watching.